Let me take you back to the night I nearly didn't leave Rosie's diner, a little place out on Highway 22, just outside Baton Rouge, where the swamp air crawls up your skin and the night seems to press in from outside. I work the graveyard, shift every weekend, and I never thought much of it until that one night when everything changed. The diner sits on a lonesome stretch of road, miles from the nearest town, nothing but swamp and pine and the occasional alligator. The neon sign flickers like a dying pulse, and the air is always thick, even in winter. Inside is all chrome and cracked red vinyl, grease in the air and coffee that could wake the dead. That night, it was just me, old Mrs. LeBlanc at the register, and Jimmy, the cook, who never said much but could make a mean plate of eggs. First, it was the truckers. They'd stop in, eat in silence, and leave. Then came the couple at booth 3. He was tall, all bones, and she kept her face hidden behind her hair. I brought them coffee, and she never looked up. The man just smiled, but it wasn't the kind of smile that makes you feel safe. Around midnight, a storm rolled in. The rain hammered the roof, and the lights flickered. Mrs. LeBlanc started humming some old gospel tune, and Jimmy started talking for once about how his granddaddy used to say storms like this brought restless spirits out of the swamp. Then, the phone rang. Mrs. LeBlanc answered, listened for a second, and hung up. "Wrong number," she said, but her voice was shaky. I saw her cross herself. Not 10 minutes later, a man walked in. He was soaked to the bone, his clothes muddy, and he smelled like wet earth and something else, something old and sour. He sat at the counter and ordered black coffee, never looked up from his hands. I poured his cup, and when I set it down, his fingers brushed mine, cold, like he'd been out in the grave all night. That's when the couple at booth 3 started whispering. I caught a word here and there: swamp, bones, never, found. My skin prickled. I told myself it was just the storm, just the night, just my nerves. I went back to the kitchen to check on Jimmy, but he was gone. The back door was open, rain blowing in. I called his name, but no answer. That's when I heard it, the sound of something heavy dragging across the floor in the dining room. I peeked through the kitchen door. The man at the counter was gone, but his coffee cup was still full. The couple at booth 3 were staring at the door like they were waiting for something. The woman's hair had fallen back, and I saw her face for the first time. Pale, hollow, her eyes black as the night outside. Mrs. LeBlanc was still humming, but now it sounded like a funeral. Him. I walked out to the dining room, heart hammering. The storm outside was louder, and the lights flickered again. That's when I saw the muddy footprints leading from the counter to the bathroom. I followed them, not sure why, but I had to know. The bathroom door was ajar. I pushed it open. Inside, the mirror was fogged, and the air was thick with the smell of moss and rot. The sink was running, but the water was brown, and on the floor, a pile of clothes, the same clothes the man at the counter had been wearing, soaked and muddy. I turned to leave, and the door slammed shut behind me. The lights went out. In the dark, I heard breathing, slow, wet, right behind my ear. I screamed and threw myself at the door. It wouldn't budge. The breathing got louder, closer. Then, a voice, whispering, guttural, not human. "You're next." The lights flicked back on. The bathroom was empty, except for the muddy clothes and the smell. I ran out, heart in my throat. Back in the dining room, the couple at booth 3 were gone. Mrs. LeBlanc was still humming, but now she was staring at me with eyes too wide, her lips moving, but no sound coming out. And that's when I noticed something else. The neon sign outside had gone dark. The only light left was the dim glow from the kitchen, casting long shadows across the floor. I tried to call out for Jimmy again, but my voice caught in my throat. Then, from the kitchen, I heard the sound of something moving, something heavy and slow. I crept toward the sound, my hands shaking, my breath coming in short gasps. The kitchen was empty, but the back door was still open, rain pouring in. I looked out into the night, but all I saw was the blackness of the swamp. And then, from somewhere out there, I heard a voice, Jimmy's voice, calling my name. But it didn't sound like Jimmy at all. It sounded wet and wrong. I slammed. The door shut and locked it, my hands shaking so hard I could barely turn the lock. I turned around, and Mrs. LeBlanc was standing right behind me, her face inches from mine. Her eyes were wide, unblinking, and her mouth was open, but no sound came out. She reached out and grabbed my arm, her fingers like ice. That's when the lights went out again, and I was alone in the dark with whatever was in the diner with me. The darkness in the kitchen was thick, and I could feel Mrs. LeBlanc's fingers digging into my arm like ice. I tried to pull away, but she held on tight, her breath coming in short, ragged gasps. The only sound was the storm outside, rain hammering the roof and the wind howling through the cracks in the door. "Mrs. LeBlanc," I whispered, my voice shaking. "What's happening?" She didn't answer. Her eyes were wide and unblinking, staring past me, as if she saw something in the dark that I couldn't. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. Then, from the dining room, I heard a chair scrape across the floor, a slow, deliberate sound. My heart pounded in my chest. I turned my head, but I couldn't see anything through the darkness. "Who's there?" I called out, my voice barely above a whisper. No answer, just the sound of the storm and the creak of the old diner settling. Mrs. LeBlanc's grip tightened. I could feel her pulse racing under her skin. She suddenly let go and took a step back, her eyes darting toward the dining room door. She pointed, her hand trembling. I swallowed hard and crept toward the door, my breath coming in short bursts. The kitchen light flickered once, then went out again. I was left in total darkness. I reached out, feeling for the doorframe. My fingers brushed something wet and cold, something that wasn't wood or metal. I jerked my hand back, my heart pounding. From the dining room I heard a voice. It was low and guttural, like someone speaking through water. "Come out!" it said. "We're waiting." I didn't move. I couldn't. My legs felt like lead. Then, the kitchen light flicked on again. Mrs. LeBlanc was gone. The back door was still locked, but the rain had stopped. The silence was worse than the storm. I forced myself to step into the dining room. The neon sign outside was still dark. The only light came from the kitchen, casting long, jagged shadows across the floor. The chairs were all pushed in, except for one, the one at booth 3, where the couple had been sitting. It was pulled out, as if someone had just gotten up. I walked over to the booth, my footsteps echoing in the empty diner. The table was covered in condensation, as if something cold had been sitting there. I reached out and touched the surface. It was ice cold. Then I heard a sound behind me, a soft, wet laugh. I spun around. The man from the counter was standing by the door. He was still soaked, his clothes dripping onto the floor. His face was hidden in shadow, but I could see his mouth, wide, grinning, too wide for a human face. "You should have left," he said, his voice dripping with something dark and old. I backed away, my back hitting the booth. The man took a step forward, then another. The lights flickered, and for a second, I saw his eyes. Black, empty, like the night outside. Then, the door to the bathroom creaked open. I turned my head. The couple from booth 3 were standing there, their faces pale and hollow, their eyes black as coal. The woman smiled, her teeth sharp and yellow. "You're one of us now," she said, her voice echoing in the empty diner. I looked around for Mrs. LeBlanc, for Jimmy, for anyone, but I was alone. The man from the counter reached out, his fingers brushing my cheek. They were cold, like the grave. "You're next," he whispered. I screamed and pushed past him, running for the door. The handle was cold and wet, but it turned. I yanked it open and stumbled out into the night. The air was thick with the smell of moss and rot. The neon sign flickered back to life, casting a sickly red glow over the parking lot. I ran for my car, my heart hammering in my chest. I fumbled with my keys, my hands shaking so hard I could barely get the door open. I jumped in and slammed the door shut, locking it behind me. I looked back at the diner. Through the window, I could see the man from the counter, the couple from booth 3, and Mrs. LeBlanc, all standing together watching me. Their eyes were black, their faces pale and hollow. I turned the key and the engine roared to life. I peeled out of the parking lot, not looking back. But as I drove down Highway 22, the radio crackled to life. A voice, low, guttural, familiar, whispered through the static, "You can't run forever. You're one of us now." I turned the radio off, but the voice stayed in my head, echoing, repeating, over and over. I never went back to Rosie's diner. I heard it closed down a few weeks later. The police said it was because of a gas leak, but I knew better. I still see them sometimes, in my dreams. The man from the counter, the couple from booth 3, Mrs. LeBlanc. They're always watching, always waiting. And sometimes, when the wind blows just right, I can still hear the old gospel tune Mrs. LeBlanc used to hum, drifting through the night, calling me back to the diner on Highway 22.